You know Graybar for electrical parts, but there's one more thing you may not be thinking of us for that can help maximize your next project's total value. Our pre-project planning services are designed to help you win the bid, save on labor costs, and keep your installers productive across your entire build. The sooner you call us, the better. Because when we're there from the beginning, we can anticipate your needs and help you solve problems before they become problems. Yep, Graybar does that.
There could be a pennant clinched to advance to the World Series in a matter of hours. By the time you hear this, we could already have a World Series matchup, depending on when you tune in. If you're lazy and you don't listen until like Friday, who knows, man? Maybe we already got the World Series set. Thanks for joining us so late. Jeez.
I mean, good for you. Like, yeah, you know, you're smarter than we are at that point, I guess.
Yeah.
We may be knocking that person, but that person also knows more about the world than we do.
That's true. That's true. You've advanced past us in your knowledge of what is currently going on this planet, which is, that's a dicey proposition. But from a baseball standpoint, things have been fun lately as we welcome you into this week's episode of the Show Before the Show, the official podcast of minor league baseball from MILB.com. My name is Tyler Maughan. Sam Dykstra is my fearless co-host. Hi, Sam.
Fearless. I do have fears. Well, I have fears specifically about the show. I have fears about my job. I have fears in life. Not great with heights.
Okay.
Snakes are not great. I don't know what
to
to
do. Not a snake guy, huh?
Yeah.
I did see a snake on a walk with my dog the other day. We live near this park that has a lake, and there was a fairly substantially sized snake. Not like not like something out of the Amazon, but it was probably a couple feet long. It was very thin. And from what I understand, it's a Colorado snake, so unless it rattles, it's pretty harmless. But I was not expecting to see that. And I was on my phone, looked down at the dog, and then I was like, why is the ground moving? Ah! And it was a snake. And,
my parents went on a walk over the weekend, close to my home in Massachusetts. And my dad gladly put on Facebook, yeah, we found 3 snakes. And I wouldn't be like, what? Are you okay? Is everything fine? And did all the research on, I can't remember what they were. One was a garter snake, which is harmless. Another was like a black rat snake, which I guess is also harmless. I don't know what to do with snakes. You can't.
Yeah, they're not fun.
Yeah, you can't shoot them. Not that I carry a gun, but I don't.
Yeah, they're. I think you just got to get a shovel, man. You just.
See, these are things I don't know. I have fears. That's what I want you all to know out there. Tyler might call me fearless. I have fears.
Or get a club, like the Whacking Day episode of The Simpsons.
There you go. Sure.
You never know. Having lived in Australia for a little while, it got me to a point where I was like, I really shouldn't be scared of anything in the States. Australia, everything in Australia can kill you. Everything that moves is designed to eliminate human life, mostly. Like the family that I lived with, the host family that I lived with, which, man, we're recording this on October 14th. It was, I believe, 9 days from now. I think it was the 23rd, 10 years ago that I moved to Sydney to help launch the Australian Baseball League. And the team that I lived with there, or the family that I lived with there, they had a poison spider chart, a spider poison chart where if you got bit by something, you're supposed to compare the spider or the type of bite to this chart. And I would say half of the spiders on the chart were yeah, you might die if you don't get to a hospital immediately. So between that and the snakes and, kangaroos can just kick you in the head and you're dead. After that, I was like, I can't really be scared of anything here.
Yeah, those Colorado kangaroos. Yeah. Those Colorado kangaroos are much safer.
We're not really dealing with that. We're not really dealing with that so much. But with all that thrilling and insightful baseball conversation, we welcome you into this week's episode of the old Show Before the Show. Thanks for finding us wherever you did. You can give us a rating and a review and a subscription. We are on Apple Podcasts and Google Play and Spotify and everywhere else you get your favorite shows. I think I'm finally pulling the trigger on that new iPhone they announced today. I think I'm going to do it. I haven't gotten a new phone. I looked at, when was this phone really? I haven't gotten a new phone since 2016, which is I might as well be carrying around Zach Morris's phone at this stage. It's 4 years. It's how did I make it 4 years with the same phone, not shattering into a trillion pieces and, dropped into a toilet or something. So I think I'm doing it. So I would imagine that means that the show before the show will sound even better, especially with my nonsensical lead-ins to every segment that we record.
And barring that agreement we have with Apple and with Tim Cook specifically, I think it's just going to all automatically be on the phone.
He's just mailing me one tomorrow. You can't even pre-order them until Friday. I'll probably just get it in the mail tomorrow from Tim.
And all the episodes will be there.
Big fan of the podcast. One assumes. I assume Tim Cook sits around, just listens to the show before the show all the time.
If he does, I have very specific requests. First of which is Tim Cook come on the show before the show.
Tim Cook, go on Chapo. So let's dive in. We got a bunch coming up for you on this week's episode of the show. Michael Harris, the number 12 prospect in the Atlanta organization, who you can find on Twitter with one of my favorite Twitter handles of the dudes who we have interviewed on the show. He is at Money Mike, but he's got 3 Y's at the end of Money and 3 E's at the end of Mike. Michael Harris will join us coming up in a little bit. Guy who did not get a season this year, of course, just drafted in the 2019 third round, and one of those guys who you would have really loved to see in his first full professional season. Didn't happen this year. We'll talk to him about that and where he is right now with getting into the offseason and or at least close to the offseason. It is instructional league time around the game of baseball. One thing that we want to alert you to, we are starting to roll out our state of the system stories. Ordinarily, this time of year, we'd be firing off our organization all-stars stories, and obviously we can't do that this year. So we're going to do kind of a condensed version of that where we look at where each system is coming out of this weird 2020 campaign. Pittsburgh Pirates story is up right now. We are going in reverse order of records with which teams finished in 2020. So obviously the Tampa Bay Rays and the squads that are still in the postseason, you won't see those stories until well after the playoffs are over. We're starting with the teams that need the help most from their systems. So the poor Buccos, 19-41 this year. That story's up on the site right now. But those teams that are still in the playoffs are still getting some pretty big contributions from prospects in the playoffs. As we're recording on Wednesday afternoon, as of tonight, the Tampa Bay Rays can sweep the Houston Astros from the American League Championship Series. Tyler Glasnow will get the ball, I believe, this evening for Tampa Bay. It's not going to matter by the time you listen to this. The game's well done and dusted. So either congratulations, Rays, or Game 5 coming up tonight. The Rays have gotten ridiculous production out of Randy Arozarena, who just continues every single time you see him come to the plate to either sting a baseball over a wall or into a gap or something, or put together a pretty good at bat, even in the times when he has been out. On the National League side, the NLCS has been an interesting one so far in that Atlanta, with a 2-0 series lead, was dominant through the first 16 innings, really. And then yesterday, Game 2 got real interesting toward the end. With that game ending, the Braves led, I believe, at 1.81, and they ended up holding on for an 8-7 win in that game, Coors. And right now, it's looking as though we may have an Atlanta-Tampa Bay World Series, which, to me, I think is obviously it doesn't have the narrative and the hot takes of an Astros-Dodgers rematch. But man, the level of fun in a Braves World Series this year, I think would be off the charts. But the prospects have been really fun to watch over the last couple of weeks.
Yeah, no, for sure. And that's one of the things about this sport. Like if you were to take away names and take away locations and all that, and just were to present like 2 very fun teams to watch right now, I think the Rays and the Braves right now, just speaking right now, the way they've played in the playoffs has been fascinating. The Rays win yesterday in Game 3, just killing you with 1,000 paper cuts was fascinating to watch. And they've got Randy Arozarena, who Tyler mentioned, has been really the superstar of the playoffs, at least from a position player point of view. He leads all postseason batters in hits. He's got 18 of those. He leads in total bases. He's got 35 of those. He's hitting .462 over his first 10 games. That will likely change by the time you guys hear that, but that's still crazy. That could conceivably even go up somehow for him. He's hit 4 homers, 1 triple, 3 doubles. I believe his 8 total extra base hits lead the major leagues this postseason. An on-base percentage of .512, an OPS of 1.409. The guy has been maybe the most feared hitter so far in these playoffs. It's been really fascinating to see how teams are trying to pitch him. There have been times when it seems like, okay, he's just hunting fastballs. That's what we need to do. We just need to go with breaking stuff, off speed, keep him off the fastball. And, I think there was a game where he was 1 for 4 with 3 strikeouts. The one hit was a home run off a fastball. And it looked like he was struggling with the off speed, but every once in a while he'll come around on one. I'm going to save a fact about him for the Nationwide Prospect Fun Fact at the end of the show. So circle back around on that to show you just how good he has been as a hitter. But he really has become like the most feared hitter in this postseason, to the point where he comes up and you're like, okay, he's almost an automatic hit. There was even a time in Game 3 where he didn't even step into the batter's box. I don't think they automatically just, intentionally walked him, which is a thing we do now. But he didn't even have to get to the plate. They just signaled, no, just get to first, which was really funny. So seeing him turn into that type of superstar is really, really cool. This is only 10 games played. We'll talk more about this in the offseason and potentially going into 2021. It's great when somebody like Juan Soto has a great postseason, as he did last year. And we know he was good during the regular season and good for prolonged stretches and took that leap to become a superstar. Randy Arozarena is acting like a superstar right now, but he doesn't have that sustained success. As we've discussed on the show before, he was a late season call up for the Rays. And I'm not ready to put him into the category of, hey, he's going to be a multiple time All-Star. But if you had to redo rankings right now, he might be a top 100 prospect given everything that he's showing and what we know he can do against playoff quality arms, which is really fascinating. So but let's see what happens to him as he goes a little bit further into this Astro series, and if he has to potentially take on the Dodgers or the Braves, which no matter who comes out of that series has had really good starting pitching and really good bullpens. How are they going to attack him? But that's fascinating. Tyler, I know you wrote about this with Ian Anderson the other night, coming off his Game 2 start, but what stood out to you about what he's been able to do?
Yeah, I mean, what's so interesting about last night, especially, Ian Anderson admitted, and his manager Brian Snitker admitted, it wasn't that good. I mean, it wasn't his best night at all. He finished, I think, with 85 pitches and only 48 were strikes. He walked 5, which was the first time he had done that all season. It's not his career high. I believe he had a game last year in which he walked 6. But the command, it was just a battle, as Ian Anderson put it. But even though he only ended up going 4 innings, also struck out 5, only gave up 1 hit, and did not allow a run. He became the first player in Atlanta franchise history, the first pitcher with 3 straight scoreless postseason starts. And had he gone 1 more scoreless inning last night, he would have been just the second player in Major League history to start his postseason career with 3 straight scoreless outings of 5 innings or more. And the only other guy to do that was Christy Mathewson way back in the day. I believe that there are 6 pitchers who have done it in total, 3 straight scoreless starts to begin their career, but 5 innings or more, only Christy Mathewson has done that. But Ian Anderson, I mean, he's been exactly what Atlanta has needed. And Game 2 is such a pivotal game in a series, because if you go from the feeling of 1-1 and all of a sudden it's a best of 5, or 2-0 and you only have to win 2 of the next 5 games to make it to the World Series, it's a hinge point in a series. And they all are to a degree in a 7-game series, of course, but Game 2, I think, is underrated in its importance a lot of the time. And Ian Anderson was big last night for that team. The matchup that he got was against a Dodgers offense that in Game 1 looked completely befuddled, and in Game 2 could not figure him out. They didn't get anything going until late. What'll be interesting to see is how Game 3 stacks up and going forward. And I know there was a question posed to Brian Snitker last night. What's your level of concern now that it seems like the Dodgers have kind of gotten themselves maybe back on track offensively? Atlanta will turn to Kyle Wright this evening against Julio Urias, who actually will have a mention of him a little while later in a totally different context. But that was the thing that stood out most about Ian Anderson, a guy who, at 22, I think, is still Ian Anderson's age. If you can go out and do that in game 2 of a National League Championship Series, not have your best stuff, not have your best command, and still battle and put up zeros, that's pretty impressive for a young guy. And that's what Brian Snitker said after that game last night as well. And also the fact that it came against the Dodgers and everything that comes along with that team and that offense. Ian Anderson said after the win, I think this is something that this will be a moment that I point back to as one of my best memories, depending on how this thing, plays out for us. But this one feels like it was bigger than the first couple of starts that he had in the postseason. So pretty impressive work from a young guy on a staff full of young guys, it feels like right now.
Yeah, and the Dodgers, we can't stress this enough, feel like a sleeping giant.
Yeah.
After going down 0-2, and you talked about it before with with their comeback last night that fell short, but we know that the Dodgers are probably the most talented team left. They had the best regular season record, talent all over the field. Going down 2-0, it feels like the Braves have all the momentum right now, and they very well might. But at any time, this offense can turn on. And let's say Ian Anderson makes one more mistake last night, and we're talking about a 9-8 ball game instead of an 8-7 one in the Dodgers' favor. So, like we've always said in this segment so far, by the time you guys hear this, it could be 2-1 Braves. It could be 2-2 for all we know. But for Ian Anderson to do this in a lineup that has Mookie Betts, has Corey Seager, has some of the best bats in all of the National League, and to turn it over as well as he did and just basically pass the baton, survive in advance, get them through those 4 innings in his toughest outing yet was really special to watch. And we'll see if Kyle Wright does that as well. I mean, Kyle Wright's been one of the surprises of the postseason for me. We were talking about rookie pitchers last week, and I forgot to mention him, and people brought that up. And thank you for doing that, and thank you for listening and pointing out my mistakes when I forget somebody. But Kyle Wright seems to have really put things together at last for this Braves club at a time when they really need that third starter. There were questions about the rotation coming in, and Max Fried and Ian Anderson answered those. But if they have another solid starter in Kyle Wright, first round pick from a couple of years ago, everybody thought coming out of Vanderbilt was going to be very well advanced, but really hit a wall in the majors, seems to be turning things around now. That would be huge for not only their prospects here in the NLCS, but of winning the whole dang thing, because they get some pitching with what Freddie Freeman's able to do right now, potential NL MVP this year, what Ozzie Albies seems to be doing with the power, and Ronald Acuna still being around is really special. And let's just throw out real quick, Christian Pache now taking on an even bigger role for that Atlanta Braves team after Adam Duvall went down with an injured oblique. Christian Pache getting to run in that very, very big Texas outfield, which is perfect for him. He's going to do some things. We've talked a lot on Twitter about the Rays defense right now and how it seems like they're always in the right position. And Hunter Renfroe made a couple really good catches. Christian Pache is going to do some things in center field or in left, wherever they decide to play him. He's best in center, that aren't going to look spectacular, but that's because he covered the amount of ground. He got the great start to just get there in time. And that's going to be a huge boon for these young arms that the Braves have, with the more veteran types in the bullpen. And even if he's not making sliding catches, know that Christian Pache is going to have an impact defensively at the very least in this NLCS and potentially beyond.
Another pretty amazing fact that came out of that game last night, Christian Pache became the youngest starting center fielder in a league championship series or World Series since Andrew Jones did it for Atlanta back in 1998. That's not the amazing thing. The amazing thing is both those guys, 21 years old, that was Andrew Jones's third straight LCS or World Series as a starter in center field for Atlanta. He started doing that at 19. Andrew Jones was hitting multiple homers in a game in the World Series in 1996 at 19 years old. So it was like, yeah, it's Andrew Jones, but also he was already like a 3-year big league veteran by then, which is ridiculous. People, you kind of forget just what a phenom he was. I mean, his first 6, 8, 10 years in the big leagues, Andrew Jones was a surefire Hall of Famer. and then just fell off. And, he's had a very interesting baseball life. He was actually a member of he of course is from Curacao famously. He was a member of the Netherlands coaching staff last year for a tournament that I worked on, and got a chance to work with friend of the show before the show, JP Morosi, and JP and I, Hensley Mullins is the manager of that team, and Andrew Jones on the staff, and JP knows everybody. So got to meet them, and you meet Andrew Jones, and it's like, man, you could still play today. He's like 50 now. You could still play. He's not 50. He's like 40, but pretty impressive dude, Andrew Jones. And that's Pache, the skill set. Sam tweeted last night about his speed tool. The things that he's able to do. He is a very dynamic young performer. And it just seems like Atlanta churns those guys out year after year. That team's coming up with them.
Yeah, and just to note that Drew Waters still has yet to debut.
Right.
We thought he was going to be a potential 2020 debut. Maybe in a regular 162 game season, we would have seen him. That didn't work out. But yeah, being able to see Ender Inciarte, who at one point was one of the best defensive center fielders in the game, his career has kind of taken a nosedive. He wasn't on the NLCS roster, basically got replaced by Christian Pache in the depth chart. But to bring up Pache like that and not skip a beat defensively, and we'll see what happens offensively, but he can impact the game with his speed on the base paths. He's not exactly an aggressive base runner, at least when it comes to stealing bases. And I know Ron Washington actually got on his case about that, about how the Braves are a team that we're going to push the envelope. We're going to try to get aggressive with that stuff. And he needs to start doing that himself. Doesn't have the greatest track record of that in the minor leagues, but the skills are there. And him and Acuna in the same outfield is really special. And right now they've been playing Nick Markakis. I know as of right now, Austin Riley is going to be playing in left tonight. So they have some other outfield options, not as quick as either Acuna or Pache, but being able to plug him in when somebody like Adam Duvall goes down, it is something special and also a credit to the Braves that they have somebody like Pache ready to go.
And our final point of our opening segment on this week's episode of the show before the show, we told you earlier, our state of the system stories have begun to roll out, beginning with the Pittsburgh Pirates. This is how we tie things up in a nice little tidy bow, the magic of radio. That was kind of a tease for the fact that the Major League Baseball 2020 first-year player draft will also be in the same format. Not for you, Astros. But the Pirates will have the first pick in the draft, and it will fall behind them in descending order of record, or I guess ascending order of. If you were bad, you get a better pick. We'll put it that way. The Pirates will pick first, followed by the Texas Rangers, the Detroit Tigers, the Boston Red Sox, the Baltimore Orioles, Arizona Diamondbacks, Kansas City Royals, Colorado Rockies, Los Angeles Angels of Anaheim, and the New York Mets. Those are the top 10 selections. There will only be 29 first-round picks. Of course, the Astros will not have their first-round selection. Lost it in 2020 as well as 2021 as part of punishment for the sign-stealing scandal. But this is we're in a spot right now where you're not really sure what the 2021 draft is going to look like, nor the 2021 high school or college baseball season. But at least there is some, if you're the Pirates right now, you're on the clock.
Yeah, no. And that was kind of, I'm glad we got the question answered now, because the longer that went, it was definitely going to affect scouting decisions as fall ball kind of begins for some of these college programs, if they are going to have some sort of fall ball scouting trips for other places. It's good to have this established. There was some question about it. Normally we're not talking about the draft order in October because we know what it is year in, year out. Part of the agreement that allowed the 2020 season to happen was that, the commissioner could set the draft order in some way he saw fit for 2021. There was some question about, well, is it going to be in reverse order? Are we going to combine records between 2019 and 2020? That's what I kind of thought was going to happen. Having an entire draft order decided by a 60-game season rather than a 162-game season feels a little off. But the way things work this year is the Pirates, it was a really down year. I have no doubts that it would have been a down year for them over 162 games as well. Maybe Ke'Bryan Hayes could have really helped them win a few more games. Maybe they don't end up in the cellar. But basically they've won the Kumar Rocker sweepstakes. He's the consensus number one. Maybe something weird happens. He is a pitcher. Pitching injuries happen. but he's been a superstar ever since he stepped on campus in Vandy in those first 2 years. He'll get a third spring this time if college baseball is able to be played. We know the stuff is there. If college baseball can't be played, that's honestly almost going to help him just because we've seen him a lot and we know how his stuff is going to work. Whereas someone like a high school senior or somebody who, like, I'm trying to think of an example off the top of my head who was real pop-up prospect. The example I'll give is Andrew Benintendi, who was kind of a pop-up prospect in his last year before he was drafted. Those guys are going to be the ones hurt, but Kumar Rocker going to the Pirates seems like it's going to be all but guaranteed. Then in looking at the Pirate system right now, they don't have that real true ace potential in the system. I would have really liked to have seen Brendan Malone, what he could have done in a full year in a Pirates uniform. Quinn Priester was their first round pick a couple of years ago. What would have happened to him? That could have been something. Mitch Keller graduated. He hasn't really been that guy at the major league level that maybe they would have hoped. But right now their strengths are at the position player. Nick Gonzalez, they drafted this year. Really excited to see what he can do now that he's out of New Mexico State. How much of that was inflation of numbers from there? Or was it, the guy who was really, really good on the Cape? How well can he carry that to the pro ranks? But adding somebody like Kumar Rocker, that is legit superstar potential and the type of pitcher that turns around a system and potentially moves quick. I mean, he's coming from Vandy. We talked about this before with Kyle Wright. Kyle Wright did kind of move quick through the Brave system, then stalled out, but Kumar Rocker could do that as well with the Pittsburgh Pirates. Really looking forward to see what the Rangers do at number 2. That's much more up in the air. The Rangers right now, kind of the same thing. I think they're a little position player heavy. Do they consider an arm? They're definitely going to go for the best player available. Don't get me wrong. But how can they kind of improve that system will be fascinating. The Tigers getting another bite at the apple with a top 3 pick. It seems like they've done pretty well. Casey Mize, a little disappointing this year in the majors, but we still think a lot about him. Spencer Torkelson, they got it number 1 overall this year. It didn't seem like that was much of an issue for them or a pick they're going to be thinking about twice for a long time. They get another top 3 pick here. How do they add to that mix will be fascinating. And the Boston Red Sox at number 4, going to be watching that very closely. They surprised everyone by taking Nick York this year. Nick York was not a consensus first round pick. The Red Sox didn't have a second round pick. So I thought they were going to have to get aggressive with the first round pick. They decided not to do that. They were aggressive later in the draft by getting Blaze Jordan. Now they have a chance again to pick somebody who could be the face of the system. Right now, that's Jeter Downs, who they got from the Dodgers in the Mookie Betts trade. You could also make a case that Tristan Casas is that guy. Bobby Dahlbeck is still technically a prospect, even though he impressed a lot with his power this year in the majors. The Red Sox clearly in a rebuild right now, to a point where they traded arguably one of the 3 best players in the sport. So they do that to get this pick. Now, what are they going to do with it? That's all stuff we're going to talk about coming into June. But now that we know the draft order is set, we can start thinking about these things and what is the next step for some of these farm systems that A, are either rebuilding, or B, could really use the help, like the Red Sox system right now. They could really use that help. So we'll see how things go, but good to know this order for now.
So with that, we will talk with a guy who was just through the draft process last year, a little bit more than a year ago. Michael Harris, the 12th ranked prospect in the Atlanta organization, joins the show next.
This past year has shown us that without your health, you have nothing. If you're not well, you can't work, look after yourself, or take care of your family. You can't enjoy the life you've worked so hard to build. That's why you need to prioritize taking care of your long-term health today, before it goes from good to bad to worse. So invest in your long-term health with Forward. Forward is intelligent medicine with a personal touch. Their doctors are dedicated to catching top killers like cancer and heart disease early before it's too late. And catching them early could save you tens of thousands of dollars in the long run. Everyone's health history is different, which is why Forward doctors personalize a health plan with you, based on your genetics, lifestyle, and biometrics to achieve long-term results and ensure nothing gets missed. It's time to invest in a doctor that's invested in you. Go to goforward.com today to protect your future health. That's goforward.com. Goforward.com.
Well, we are headed to one of the 4 remaining alive organizations in the MLB postseason, and Atlanta is, or the Atlanta area, the state of Georgia, where we find the 13th ranked prospect in the Brave system, outfielder Michael Harris II. Michael, what's going on, man? How's things?
I've been good. Just got back from Instructs. Had a great year at the alternate site. That's basically it.
This Instruct experience for you guys this year is a little bit different, and we'll talk about that here coming up in a little while. It's obviously been the weirdest year for anybody and everybody, but tell us about, from your perspective, it's kind of how we've been kicking off these interviews for the last, now 7 months. When you were in spring training, getting set and ready to go, and then all of a sudden everything gets shut down before summer camp and the alternate training sites and all of that, what were you doing? I mean, how did you kind of try to figure out a way to make it through April and May and June and all that?
Yeah, that was crazy because last off season, I felt like I did everything I needed to have a great season for 2020. And to hear the news that we had to go home early, it was really heartbreaking, but I knew once we got back home, I had to continue working and not take my foot off the gas because I knew at some point there would be something we would be doing, and we ended up doing the 60-man alternate site. So I'm glad I kept it going and kept working hard.
When you are going into your first full pro season, I would imagine that the excitement level, you get to go to spring training for the first time. You're going to get assigned to a minor league affiliate and probably go. I mean, you made it to Rome by the end of your debut season in 2019. So you're probably headed to a full season affiliate. You're going to get that opening day experience. And then all of a sudden, everything's put on hold. For you, from an emotional standpoint, what was that like? Because I would think the excitement for somebody in your position is probably higher than maybe anybody else in baseball. In March when they sent you guys home, what was that immediate feeling like?
Yeah, I felt like I was let down because we were just days away from opening day, and I felt like I was ready, and I was really ready to get started for this year. But I knew it was just something we had to do for the safety of players and everybody around us. So I wasn't totally mad because I knew at some point we would come back or do something to replace the season. But I wish I would have got to have a full season this year, more than likely starting off in Rome and just getting a feel of what a full season in pro ball feels like.
Yeah, and this is another question I feel like I'm asking guys a lot recently is how do you envision how 2020 would have gone for you in a normal year?
I feel like it would have been a pretty, I wouldn't say it would have been a great year. I feel like I would have had a pretty good, decent year, put up decent numbers, just try to be the person I know I can be and just go out there and play 100% every time and have fun.
And one of the things that did happen to you this year is that you got added to the Braves player pool. I know every organization had kind of a different philosophy on how they wanted to treat the player pool, but the Braves added you, again, a 2019 third rounder, pretty early. It was in middle of July. They had you around for a long time as well. Just take us through that process of how you found out you were going to be at the player pool, what summer camp was like, and then what was it like being at technically the alternate site for much of the summer?
Yeah, I was honestly really surprised to get the call there early to go. But being there, I really learned a lot, and I feel like I got way better, especially facing some of the guys that came down from the big league team from injuries or just getting sent down. And especially having the chance to play in the 2 exhibition games against the Marlins right before the season kicked off. It was a great experience, and I really learned a lot from those two games and just being at the alternate site, period.
And what were the biggest lessons you took away from that, especially from those 2 games exhibition games against the Marlins, because it's one thing to be kind of a non-roster invite to spring training and playing in the big league park at spring training, but this is another thing where it's legitimately the big league park, and especially you being a Georgia kid, I'm sure that meant a little bit more. But what did those two games mean, and what lessons did you learn from them?
It meant a lot to be able to play with the team that I want to be with for a good minute. Lesson I get from it is just never give up. You always have your chance if you show out at the right time, and just keep your head on the swivel and stay focused. Never lose track of what dreams you have set, and anything's possible.
Michael, one thing that the Atlanta organization does so well is identify talent in not only the Southeast and in that region, but especially in the state of Georgia. And for you, you get to start your career, you go to the GCL, but then you're in Rome, which is within, I think an hour, maybe an hour and a half of Atlanta, obviously depending on Atlanta traffic. To have that as an opportunity for you, how cool is that? I mean, a chance to, like being in an area that's so close to home, but so familiar also. When you're getting started in your pro career, I would think that's a pretty awesome asset to have, that everything still feels so much like home. It's not like you got shipped off all the way across the country to go play somewhere else. What was that like?
Yeah, it really did feel like home. My first day there, I had a good amount of family members and high school teammates that came. They were chanting like I've been there the whole time, like they never missed a game. I really felt comfortable and at home because of them. And to be near home, I don't know, it just feels much better than having to be far away. You know your family can come watch you. You have that support system at all times.
What's the best thing? Like, can you get a home cooked meal? Like if you call home and you're like, hey, I need somebody to make this for me and bring it out, that, or like you're around all of, I would think, the places that you like going, restaurants and stuff like that. Like that's got to be pretty great too. It's kind of clutch to just be able to have, you don't have to figure out anything new. You can just be in the same routine. I'm just eating. I'm a food question guy. This is a very important thing to me.
Oh yeah. Yeah, definitely. I did go home on the off days and have a home cooked meal. But other than that, I would just eat at some of my favorite restaurants at the field. So yeah, having that home cooked meal really was great.
You are a third round pick, and you get to go right in to get started in the GCL, and then you make that jump toward the end of the 2019 season. When you look back on, let's go with the draft process first. When did you kind of first know, in your high school career, like, A, I've got a very good shot to be drafted, but B, I've got a really good shot to be drafted, in the first 5 rounds or whatever it is? Like, when did you start getting that feeling that this is something that you might be able to go? I know you were committed to Texas Tech as a two-way player, but you all of a sudden that gets thrown into the equation of like, man, I might just be able to go do this right out of high school. When did you know that?
Well, when I first knew I had a chance to be drafted, period, it was probably late 11th grade year. That's when most colleges start rolling in and pro scouts were communicating with me. And I really knew that I had a chance to go. Well, I didn't know I had a chance to go third round until probably a week before. Wow. It's really a blessing because at first I was mostly known as a pitcher. Then coming into high school, senior year, I kind of brought it to an even standpoint of hitting and pitching. So it was kind of a difficult decision. So scouts would always ask me which one I would prefer, and I wouldn't lean more towards either one. I would always tell them whichever one would help your organization the most.
That's a smart way to go.
That championship. And I mean, I always felt like I would have more fun being an outfielder, playing every day instead of having to wait every 5 days or coming out of a bullpen. So yeah, I'm really glad that I got to go the outfield route because I like to compete every day and play every day.
And kind of along those lines, being a former two-way player, how would you scout, Michael Harris, the hitter? If you were the pitcher, how would you pitch to Michael Harris, the hitter? And if you were Michael Harris, the hitter, how would you approach going up against Michael Harris, the pitcher?
I was asked that question multiple times at like home visits, and I still have no answer. I still don't know how I would do it. Like, that's probably the toughest question I've ever been asked, honestly, about myself, because I still have no idea how I would go about that bet or the situation.
I also love that everybody asked you that because they were like, well, if we don't get you, we have to figure out how to get you out or how to get a hit off of you. Like that was just teams trying to figure out down the road, man, if we have to face this guy, what are we going to
do? Yeah, I still don't know.
When you decided that you were going to go to school for it, obviously before all the draft stuff and all that, that's such a different road right now collegiately. What was the conversation with college coaching staffs like where you could kind of assert like, hey, I know I can do this both ways? How did that conversation go?
Most of the schools, 90% of the schools wanted me to be two-way. So I feel like they believed in me as much as I did in myself. I don't think it would have been a problem with them. Most of them said I would be pitching on a certain day and then the rest of the week, be in the outfield. Yeah, so I feel like most of any school I would have went to had the same amount of trust in me that I had in myself.
And during this whole process, I know you said you didn't feel like you were going to go in the third round until about a week before, but I'm sure you still notice scouts around. Like you said, you got plenty of home visits. At what point did you realize like the Braves were an option? And being a Georgia kid, did it mean a little bit more to see like a Braves hat or a Braves polo in the audience? Or, what was your approach knowing that the Braves had at least some interest there?
Well, at first, the Braves weren't really heavy until the week before also, when I did the workout at SunTrust. And, being a hometown kid, that's why I took the opportunity to come here. I knew it'd be close to home, have a good support system. And, with either team, I still would have been myself and worked hard. Just have fun playing the game, so why not do it here?
No, for sure. And we're getting you at a special time in the organization. We're talking Wednesday night, so it's not the greatest Braves postseason game of all time, but they got off to a 2-0 start here in the NLCS, 2 wins away from the World Series. How do you watch Braves postseason games now, knowing, hey, this is a pretty cool opportunity for my local team, but also I'm a part of this organization now? Like, does watching a game change for you now?
Yes, watching the games, I still watch it like I'm a fan, but I also have to watch it as in I'm in the game in the same situation. So when it comes around later in life, I'm not surprised by the situation. So yeah, that's basically how I take it. I still watch as a fan, cheer, but I still, try to see what players do in certain situations, what pitchers do, how they play players and defense and stuff like that.
Is there an example of that you can think of? Like you were watching, like Christian Pache is a prospect with the Braves right now who's getting an opportunity in this NLCS, and somebody you got to see a little bit at the alternate site, obviously. Has there been any times either with him or some of the other outfielders that you can specifically remember thinking this is how I would handle a situation?
Not really. Yeah, I don't really have an example right now. Nothing running across my mind right now. But I felt like I had a good display of what happens at the alternate site. We had a good amount of big leaguers down there that really, really are good, like great players. We had Nick Markakis down there for a bit. Ozzie came down for a day. Charlie Culberson came down. His name, Camargo. So I really got a chance to see what big leaguers do in certain situations and how they go about certain things. So I really learned a lot on that aspect of the game.
Michael, your position group with Atlanta is so talented, and obviously, at the major league level, the names they've already been able to run up there. Christian Pache last night getting that nod, but you're in a system that also includes Drew Waters and has graduated so many of these guys in recent seasons and has been so talented. What was that like I guess mostly in spring training, but even to an extent the alternate training side, being around so many other guys who play your position that you can kind of bounce stuff off of and learn from? That's got to be kind of cool to be a guy in a room full of other guys who are, extremely talented and also have really high ceilings too, rather than just being somebody who you're the guy in a room of other guys who are kind of filling in around you.
Right. Those two, Waters and Pache, that was my first time meeting them and actually being around them on the field at the alternate site. And being around players that are that highly respected, it really makes you better as a person and a player. Just seeing what they do and learning from them, and just taking what they do in their game and try to put it into what you do to make you a better person and player.
And was there anything specifically you saw from them that's like, oh, this is something I need to implement in my game?
Well, yeah, I talked to Waters a bit. We talked about certain things. He has a certain approach that makes him such the great hitter he is, and Pache has great defense. The way he sets up and gets reads off the bat. So, that's basically what I took from that. And this great organization with the coaches we have, learn from the coaches as well. So that's basically it.
Fair. And one thing, we've interviewed some guys who were at the alternate site, and sometimes, guys who would have been at AA or AAA, and we asked them, like, did you feel close to the majors? You're closing in. Sometimes we shied away from that. But we had an interview with like Ryan Weathers, who had only played at Class A, and then the Padres called him up for the postseason. So even though you're only, still fairly young, I'll ask you the same question. Did you ever actually feel close to the majors this year at the alternate site?
Honestly, yes, but no at the same time. I would say no, because how stacked outfield is, and it had to be a lot would have had to happen for me to actually go to the big leagues this year. There was always a chance, anything is possible, but like I said, I always stay ready, do what I do, and the situation will never slip up on me if it ever happens.
And developmentally speaking, between the alternate site and Instructs, and I'll get to Instructs here in a second, but this could have easily been a lost year for you, but you got to make up some at bats and some defensive reps in those settings. How do you feel like you developed this year? Like, how are you a different baseball player now than you were this time last year or even in the spring?
I got to face a lot of big arm pitchers, and that changed my mindset in the box, and it made me a better player. Being able to read balls off of hitters that's been in the big leagues and do a lot of damage up there. So that helped me defensively and offensively. And last year, in GCL or in low A, you don't really get to see the same type of talent. So that's really how I improved this summer in summer camp, and I'm just gonna take that with me into next season.
And jumping back to the GCL and your time at Rome, I know the GCL doesn't really have fans, but at least Rome does, and the South Atlantic League does. That was your very brief taste, only 53 games of minor league baseball. But how much of that small time last year in 2019 did you need to sustain you going forward to 2021 when, knock on wood, we'll be able to get games going again, and maybe you'll be at high A or start out again at Class A. But, how much of your time at Rome and the GCL still sustains you now in terms of getting back to regular season games that kind of matter?
All of it is always going to be good work, no matter the talent level. Because anybody can do it at any point in given time. So I felt like when I got to Rome, I was just one step closer, and I had to, like I said, stay stay motivated, and keep working to get to the level I want to be at for a long time.
And let's go through Instructs here real quick. A lot of teams are still going through Instructs right now. Some of them are in Florida, some of them are in Arizona. Some teams aren't even having Instructs. The Braves had them, but were a little different in that you guys got sent to Gwinnett instead of going down to Florida. Take us through what Instructs looked like for the Braves this year.
I say it was like an extended version of the alternate site. Basically the same thing. We did scrimmages against each other, basic defensive drills, BP, one-on-one instructional things. And yeah, that's basically all we did.
So what was it like going from the alternate site roster where you were kind of the young guy and trying to soak up as much as you can to Instructs, in which it was a couple new faces at the very least, to a guy that you had been comfortable. You had been around that facility. Like you said, it was an extension of what you were already doing. Do you feel like your role changed between those two spots?
I felt like it did. I felt like I was expected of more, and to like be a leader and show what was supposed to be done, since being at the alternate site and having new faces come in. So I felt that way. So I took that as a role, and I stuck with it the whole way through.
Fair enough. And how did that kind of manifest itself? Like, were you showing guys around Gwinnett? Were you trying to tell them, no, this is what we've been doing the past few weeks? Like, how do you take on that leadership role?
Yeah, basically, we'll do a drill, and if they're a little confused about the drill that we do, I would just show them how we did it or what's supposed to be done. Or I do show them around, tell them where everything's at, how to get to somewhere, who to ask for anything. Basically things like that, the little things.
Gotcha. Yeah, and this is now going to be your second off season. It's probably not going to be anything like your first off season in terms of preparation and in terms of what spring training is going to look like and what the season is going to look like. But what do you feel like is the next step for you developmentally? Like, what are you going to be focusing on so that when you do show up to spring training, whatever that is, you're going to be ready to go and taking the next step in your career?
I always want to get a little stronger and a little faster, but basically for spring training, I just want to be in shape for spring training. Don't want to be out of shape, and I always want to be ready to go at any point of any given time.
And especially offensively, what do you feel like you were able to take from this year? I know going up against certain pitchers, Ian Anderson, the guy who's dominating the playoffs right now, was at the alternate site, and Tucker Davidson and some other big names there as well. But what do you feel like is the next step developmentally for you offensively and in the box?
I had a lot of good battles against them, so I feel like we made each other better. So, I mean, I'm just gonna take what I did in the alternate site and take it in the next season, and hopefully I should be successful just based off of the alternate site and the people I face, and yeah, just take that into 2021 with me.
Cool. And we'll end on this one, Michael. Being a local kid, like we said, being around Atlanta, there's going to be a lot of people following your career, obviously, but also if you were to make it to the major league club, there's going to be a lot of kids in that area who's just like, well, if he's living out the backyard dream that we all have for ourselves when we put on that A hat. What do you think that's going to mean for just your area, for you to not only just come up through the organization, but potentially make it to Atlanta someday?
I feel like that'll mean a lot because I felt the same way with Jason Hayward, from him being from the same area I'm from. Just watching him grow through the organization and being the player he is now is a big inspiration. Like, he was my inspiration growing up, and I have a lot of people tell me that I have similar play style to him. So I don't know if it just happened because watching him so much, or I don't know. But he was a big inspiration growing up because he was from the area and he was so successful going through the organization I love watching.
That is really cool. And it's hopefully a journey that you'll get to start more in earnest in 2021. Michael Harris II, who you can find on Twitter at Money Mike. And Michael, this has been awesome, man. Thank you so much for all the time. Congrats on the success so far, and enjoy the off season. Take some time to, breathe a little bit. Although I would imagine probably not, while your big league club is still in the playoffs. I would think that's a little stressful, but enjoy the time away from things.
All right. Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Ben's here. Hi, Ben.
Hey, Tyler. Hey, Sam.
Thought that would throw everybody off. It didn't get a single last week or whenever that was. I guess 2 weeks ago, because I didn't get to talk to you last week. I went right into it, and it threw off everybody's mojo. Today, not so much.
Yeah, now we're ready for it. Like good athletes. We're ready for anything, and we're ready to adjust to whatever the game situation. Yeah.
You adjust mid-podcast at bat. We're doing it on the phone today because the internet people have failed you out there. How are things going otherwise?
Yeah, I'm just like the old days. I'm on my phone talking to you guys, staring at my bedroom window. Lost the internet just when we were going to do this segment, and got an email from Optimum saying it's going to be down for several more hours. So now I just don't know what to do with myself. My whole life is tied into the internet. Without the internet, I am nothing.
That's lame.
I mean, it's something that you say it's just like the old days, when in the old days, we actually used to do this in person. If you can remember the real old days.
In the before.
That's true. There's stages of old days. In the old days, we would gather in the Chelsea Market conference rooms and do this in person. Then we switched offices to uptown in the Avenue of the Americas office. And then the pandemic hit and we did this on the phone. And then we switched to Zoom.
How long were you guys even in the new office before everything went to where we are now? How long was it? It was only like a couple of weeks, right?
It was 2 months. It was at the start of 2020.
Okay. So still not super long. But yeah, it's quite a time. It's quite a time for all of us that we're all slogging through. Well, all that being said, I feel like we kick off with a pertinent story and a really great story to get us started this week that Ben has up on the site right now at MILB.com. And it's one that kind of ties into our current state of the world in that the Greenville Drive, the Class A South Atlantic League affiliate of the Boston Red Sox, hosted a couple of weeks ago now, it was back on Saturday, September 22nd, as part of the state of South Carolina's Day of Action. Fluor Field played host to a ton of different civic engagement opportunities. So people could go there and get all kinds of things done. I don't want to rattle them off because I want to give you the floor for that. But this is a really cool thing that Greenville did. Tell us about this Day of Action at Fluor Field.
Yeah, this is a story that ran on the site last week. Haven't had a chance to talk about it last week because I was on vacation, and keeping in with the sign of the times, I was on vacation and didn't go anywhere, and just hung around in my apartment. That's the way things are these days. But a story came out on Tuesday, like you said, about the Greenville Drive's Day of Action, and I wanted to write about that because I do think always, but especially now, it's important to highlight civic engagement in minor league baseball communities, and try to think of ways in which minor league teams, via their ballparks, can serve as locations to, better, serve the community in terms of, key things that all of us as citizens need to do or should do. So this story with the Drive, it came about because a couple months ago, especially in the wake of, the NBA and all their political activism and getting polling sites, every NBA arena made a polling site. I just asked on Twitter, I said, are any minor league ballparks doing this? Are we going to see any minor league ballparks as voting sites? And, that tweet got a good reaction because people liked the idea. But the only response I got from a team was actually, from an individual, from Eric Jarenko, the general manager of the Drive. And he said, hey, Ben, we're trying to make our ballpark, Fluor Field, a polling site. And they worked with the county to make that happen. And unfortunately, it fell through just with timing-wise. He said that, just in terms of notifying people that their new polling location was the ballpark, that there just wasn't time, apparently. So that was a little disappointing. But out of those discussions with the county and local government, then they got offered the opportunity to be the Greenville County location for the statewide Day of Action, which was happening in every county of South Carolina. So a couple weekends ago, the ballpark, the Greenville Drives ballpark, served as a place where you could get a COVID test, where you could register to vote, where you could donate blood, where you could get a real ID from the DMV, where you could complete the census. And it was this one-stop shop for, your bureaucratic civic needs. And I just thought it was a cool event, and it was cool that how it came about for the drive. And I wrote the story just because it's an idea I want to promote or, amplify just, with so many minor league teams to promote the idea that these ballparks, many of which are publicly funded, can serve, as these public locations for things that we as citizens need to do or should do.
And one of the other things that you've had come up on the site since we last spoke to you is going to be kind of part of a series here coming up as we look back at the last decade. We've done a lot of that this year out of necessity, really, because of there being no 2020 minor league season, and we can't start off this decade. So we've been looking back at the last one. And you tweeted out just a little while ago that you think this series is kind of important because it's a great way of looking back at promos and what promos stood out from the last decade. So you're going to be going year by year. It seems like you started out in 2010, and this is a fun one to start with because I feel like a lot of the things that we talk about from a promotional aspect kind of got their start in this year and then expanded out over the 10 seasons to come after that. What stood out to you when you were putting together this piece on 2010 promos?
Yeah, it's going to be part of a weekly series highlighting every season from 2010 all the way through 2019. Of course, not 2020 because there were no promotions, but just looking back at the highlights of every season. And this is something, especially when I went back to 2010, it kind of gave me, I hate to say it because I don't know, I feel weird saying it, but it kind of gave me an appreciation of myself just because I realized wow, I did so much work to chronicle the promotions of all these years going back before 2010. And there's just not really that coverage anywhere else. And it's kind of falls through the cracks otherwise. And, whereas with games and prospects and players, what happened in every game and everyone's stats and, everyone's performance and all the results and outcomes and numbers are all kept track of and accessible. But when it comes to this other aspect of minor league baseball, the promotions and what the teams are doing to get fans in the stands and create attention, that is harder to kind of figure out and look back upon. But yet to me, the way I say that, minor league baseball is a reflection of America, I do feel like looking at the promotions every year, really reflect America during that time, the pop cultural references, the celebrities who are coming through the ballpark. So looking back through 2010, there was a lot for me to go through. A lot of it is a little hard to go through, just with the gradual erosion and decay of the internet, just like everything in this ephemeral universe. Sometimes, when you change formats and publishing systems and blogging platforms, it can be hard to track it all down. But it was a gratifying effort to look back at 2010 and be like, oh, wow, yeah, I really gave a lot of coverage to that time that Jose Canseco went to the Arkansas Travelers game and had a pregame boxing match with a 60-year-old man who was kind of fixture in the local community, assistant athletic director at a local college. That kind of thing. Wow, Jose Canseco versus Gary Hogan in an Arkansas Travelers game. And wow, I was giving a lot of publicity to Ted Batchelor, a stuntman whose goal was to get lit on fire in all 50 states. And he was trying to get minor league teams to help him with that. And the first team visited was the now defunct Savannah Sandmats. And he got lit on fire after a game and circled the bases while on fire. And, that kind of thing. Looking back at some of the celebrity appearances, Peter Mayhew, the guy who played Chewbacca, visited the Oklahoma City Redhawks. And I think, with all the Star Wars things that have happened, I think that's the only time that Chewbacca ever visited a minor league ballpark. And I believe that he has since passed away, Peter Mayhew. So that was a great opportunity to look back on that, and so on and so forth. It was a lot of fun to see what some of the giveaways were, including one of my all-time favorites, the Iowa Cubs, giving away a bobblehead of a player named later, just in reference to the player to be named later. The Iowa Cubs actually gave away a bobblehead, and it's just of a guy named later, stuff like that. And then stuff that was just kind of like, oh, wow, I remember when this got so much publicity, the Brooklyn Cyclones' Ike Davis bobble legs, which was in reference to him getting called up to the Mets, as a rookie phenom and making a series of tumbling catches that got him a lot of publicity. 10 years later, you're like, wow, Ike Davis? And wow, tumbling catches. But I love that these things exist, and I think this is why people like to collect, to have these kind of obscure items that really pinpoint these moments in time, or these people and places and accomplishments that are easy to forget. And I think with a full decade, from 2010, it's a pretty interesting thing to look back upon. And I found a lot of material. I think I'll try to share more of it on Twitter, because I found more material than I included in the article, including, in the wake of the Lakers winning the championship and, LeBron getting another championship. I found all these 2010 LeBron era promotions. Right now, LeBron's number is retired at Canal Park, the home of the Akron Rubber Ducks. But in 2010, the team, then called the Akron Arrows, they were mad because LeBron at that point was on the verge of, quote, taking his talents to South Beach. So they had a promotion, even though now everything's cool with them and LeBron. They had a promotion called Ship Out LeBron Night, and they got donations of everyone's like unwanted LeBron jerseys and that kind of thing, and made a big point of kind of getting rid of it and donating it and saying goodbye, LeBron, get out of here, because their feelings were hurt, But now everything's good. And similarly, Lake County, another Ohio team, the Captains, they changed the name to the Lake County Le Captains, like to honor LeBron and to beg him to stay. It's just funny to look back at that kind of thing.
And one I want to touch on real quick, while we're talking about 2010, is this Will Ferrell promotion when he suited up for Round Rock. I know he did that later, like in spring training. But if you were to tell me at the beginning of the decade, like this was really popular, I remember hearing about it before minor league baseball became my professional life. It seemed to touch on so many things. It seems like so many times minor leagues teams, they see an idea, they try to copy it. Sometimes it almost gets run into the ground. But this was never really copied and done again, except for in spring training when he tried to play for a whole bunch of teams in one day. Why was this so successful as a one-off?
Well, it's one you can't plan for. I mean, every team would love to get Will Ferrell to their ballpark to, assume a alter ego and create chaos. But that is one that, looking back 10 years later, you're like, wow, it almost seems like one of those things from 40 or 50 years ago. And you're like, that would never fly now. Because what happened was Will Ferrell was in town to promote a golf tournament to benefit a charity he's involved with, Cancer for College, or College for Cancer. It's a cancer fighting charity, and he was in town for a golf tournament. And he showed up at a Round Rock Express game, and when the top of the sixth inning started, he was introduced as the pitcher, as this alter ego, Billy Ray Rojo Johnson. And so he came out onto the field as the announced pitcher against the Nashville Sounds, and toting wearing jewelry, toting a bag of beer, making a whole spectacle. The first batter for the Sounds was not actually a player on the Sounds. It was actually a guy in the Round Rock Express front office. But, he comes to the plate. Will Ferrell as Rojo throws a knockdown pitch. They get in a brawl on the field. Will Ferrell's like throwing beer at him. And this happened in the middle of a AAA Pacific Coast League game. And obviously it went, very viral at the time. And 10 years later, it's one of those legendary things, that time that during a Round Rock Express game, Will Ferrell was called into the game as a pitcher. I mean, none of that's in the box score, but the fact that, from the player development side, from the visiting Nashville Sound side, that everyone signed off on that event is pretty cool, to totally disrupt a ball game, really for the benefit of the absurd comedy sketch.
As I remember it, people didn't really know, right? Like, this wasn't a thing where, nowadays, for example, and I love how you referred to him in the story as the spiritual predecessor to Kenny Powers. Like, if something's being filmed at a ballpark, people are aware of it. But I don't think, like, Round Rock fans, this wasn't something that people were aware of, that, in the sixth inning, Will Ferrell's going to come out and, like, do a little skit. Like, this was kind of a little bit Borat-esque, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a total surprise to everybody in the ballpark, except for the select few. I'm sure the teams knew, the players knew that something was going to happen, because they kind of had to have a heads up that the inning wasn't going to start as normal. But everyone in the ballpark, this was happening in real time, this dawning realization of, like, who is this guy? And, like, is that Will Ferrell? And, that's got to be a pretty thrilling moment, just to be a random fan going to a random Round Rock Express game on whatever night of the week it was. I think it was a weekday game. And to see something like that break out is truly memory. It's truly memorable. Minor league baseball, creating memories. And it's tough to top that one for sure.
Ben, you've also got a piece up on the site, which is one of the ones that I know our fans really love, you getting a chance to draw on so many of the ballparks that you visited, and you highlight some of your favorite ballpark features, some of the most unique ballpark features across the country. And it isn't just, an architectural thing or a fan element or something like that. These kind of run the gamut of everything you could really love about a minor league ballpark.
Yeah. This is a piece that came out last week, and the sort of stuff I've covered before, but just trying to highlight, especially in the absence of baseball, things we miss that are really specific to different ballparks. Like Daytona's Jackie Robinson Ballpark, kind of having the Jackie Robinson Ballpark, museum on the grounds of the ballpark. And of course, that ballpark is named for Jackie Robinson because he spent 1946 spring training there. But to have displays related to his life and times, and things where you can try to do a long jump and see if you can jump as far as Jackie Robinson did, which, spoiler alert, you can't. And, things like that, things like the Simpson statues at Albuquerque Isotopes games, which have their own elaborate backstory in terms of how they got there. And just thinking all across minor league baseball, what kind of features, really stand out and are ultra specific to that facility. So that's another fun one to write, and another one that I hope people check out.
And Ben, before we let you go, kind of taking a different kind of turn here before we wrap up this segment, but you're coming up with a story here that'll be live by the time people hear this episode, but isn't live currently, so you're still working your way through it. Unfortunately, this has been a rough time for Major League Baseball in terms of legends passing away. We've had several in the last couple of weeks. I think 5 Hall of Famers have passed away. Joe Morgan being the most recent, the Reds legend and second baseman for multiple clubs and part of the Big Red Machine. You're putting together a piece about how these guys got their starts in the minor leagues and what we can kind of take away from that. What can you tell us about that piece?
Yeah, I've been having fun researching this, and it'll be on the site on Thursday, the same day this podcast drops. 5 Hall of Famers have died in the last 2.5 months. And so those guys, Tom Seaver, Bob Gibson, Lou Brock, Whitey Ford, and Joe Morgan, I just take a look into their minor league careers, and I find it really interesting. I think people will also find it interesting to look back on how these guys' careers started. And, it's just a way to explore minor league baseball history as well. Tom Seaver played his lone minor league seasons, a member of the 1966 Jacksonville Suns. He made his debut against the Rochester Red Wings, and that team was managed by Earl Weaver. So just to think that 3 years later, Earl Weaver is managing the Orioles against Tom Seaver's Mets in the 1969 World Series. So just kind of trying to find cool threads like that. Joe Morgan was spectacular in the minor leagues. At the time, it was the Houston Colt 45s, not the Houston Astros. So he spent the 1964 season with their AA team who were named the Bullets because the parent club is the Gun. So the San Antonio Bullets were one of the parent clubs. And I had someone on Twitter tell me that one of the Houston Colt 45's Class A teams was called the Colt 22s at one point. So very different time. A lot of Houston Colt 45 gun-related team names all throughout minor league baseball. But looking at how he did, Bob Gibson was a little interesting because he spent parts of 4 seasons in the minors, and he really kind of had to develop more than most of these guys whose talent was so evident from the beginning. But in addition to dealing with racial discrimination and a tough landscape on that front, he'd also hadn't really fully committed himself to baseball until becoming a professional. So it was interesting to see that it's not totally automatic for every guy. And Whitey Ford, the oldest of these guys, he started in 1947 in the minor leagues, playing in Butler, Pennsylvania, which is not too far from Pittsburgh, and he went on to play for Norfolk and the Binghamton Triplets. His season with the Binghamton Triplets, he had gotten dysentery playing in Mexico during the off season, so he had to join the team late. And but he helped engineer a kind of worst to first turnaround and won an Eastern League championship for the Binghamton Triplets, and so on and so forth. I really like kind of digging into this stuff, so got an article coming out with kind of capsule reviews or write-ups or just information, historical overviews of these 5 Hall of Famers. They're no longer with us. They've met their end, so to speak, but I kind of want to go back to the beginning in terms of their playing careers and see how it all began.
Some great stuff up on the site from Ben, as always. You can find it all at milb.com/BensBiz and Ben on Twitter at BensBiz as well. Really great stuff, cranking out all kinds of good off-season stories. Thanks, Ben.
Hey, thank you guys. Great to talk to you. And as I'm talking to you, like some cars driving by or whatever. There's a real loud music coming. I don't know if you can hear it, but I'm getting inundated from all angles.
Maybe it's a parade.
The cost of city. Maybe it is. Who knows what it is? My internet's down. There's loud sounds coming from outside. I got to investigate.
Everything's disorienting.
It is.
Thanks, Ben.
Thanks, guys.
Hispanic Heritage Month continues on MILB.com, our Lunes de Legacy series, which is up on the site and has turned out some really, really fascinating stories. And we've got yet another one of those today as we continue shining a spotlight on Hispanic and Latino and Latina and Latinx stories throughout minor league baseball. And Rob Terranova joins the show to talk about his latest piece. Rob, what's going on, man? How are you?
Good. How's everybody doing?
We're doing fine. Rob, the dancingest dude on MILB nightly dance breaks on Zoom, and one of our favorite human beings on the planet. Rob's got a great story up on the site right now about Hector Espino, who is a Mexican League legend, a guy who was born in Chihuahua and has as many home run legends and accolades and stories about him as a guy probably could in a baseball life, to the point that he is known as the Babe Ruth of Mexico, and played in a 24-year career that ended 36 years ago. And just an amazing story. I mean, this is a story that I would say most baseball fans north of the border are probably not familiar with because he did not cross over. And that was kind of one of the key themes that you hit is what if he had come to the States, and what if he had tried to do this in Major League Baseball? This is a really interesting story. Tell us about Hector.
So yeah, really fascinating guy. Like I said, a legacy that is. The more I uncovered it, the more I was just astounded by what I found. Here's a guy with this incredible reputation in Mexico, where they say that the level of baseball is kind of like AAA, kind of on that level, and he just murdered baseball. And that's kind of that was one of his nicknames, El Niño Asesino, which was the kid killer. And at first, someone hears that, they're like, wait, what? And then he had a baby face, and he just killed baseball.
That is
so
a phenomenal nickname. The Kid Killer.
So he just wherever he played, wherever he went, he just hit the hell out of the ball. And I spoke to 2 different people and just did a ton of research on this. And there's still a debate about if he would have succeeded in the big leagues. There is one whole side that says, he didn't have the skill, or he didn't have the makeup or the character to keep up with major league pitching. So that's why he went back. And then there's another side, and one guy spoke to specifically Mike Brito, who's still
another legend.
Dodgers. Yes.
Mike Brito, everyone may remember, Mike Brito is the Panama hat cigar scout that you used to see behind the plate at Dodger Stadium back in like the 80s and 90s. That's Mike Brito.
Yes. And he, of course, is famous for discovering Fernando Valenzuela and bringing him to the States.
And Julio Urias as well.
And Julio, yes, that's right.
I believe Yasiel Puig too, but Valenzuela is the one who put him on the map.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So talking to him, by the way, fantastic interview. That interview required a lot of editing because he did not edit himself when he was talking to me. a lot of not safe for work language. But it was fantastic. Just a great guy, and he actually spoke 2 or 3 different times because with every story he would tell me, he's like, oh, my wife's getting mad at me. She's looking at me funny. We gotta continue this later, Rob. Let's talk tomorrow. So I was like, all right, Mike, you got it. So it was really just a fantastic story, and just a great conversation with him. And he swears, he said this guy would have been one of the best hitters in the major leagues. One thing he said to me that stood out was, he goes, other than Ted Williams, he can't think of a better hitter that he saw in his life than Espino. And so yeah, the obviously the debate rages on. We'll never know, but what might have been if he decided, when he came to the States for 5 weeks, if he decided to stay.
Right, and you get into that in the piece. You even quote Joe Morgan, the former Red Sox manager, not the recently passed away Hall of Famer, but you quote Joe Morgan in here about why things didn't work out during Espino's time in Jacksonville. What kind of insight did you get about his dallying stateside, why it didn't extend longer.
Yep. Joe was another great guy to talk to. And he did give me some, like he just said, he did give me some insight into just his conversations with Hector. He said, the team in Jacksonville was notified that, hey, guys, we're having this guy come join the clubhouse. He's the Babe Ruth of Mexico. There's a lot of hype coming in. And then he said, it just didn't work out. And he said a few different times he tried to talk to Hector and just see what was going on with him, just try to help him get acclimated to the States and to the clubhouse, and just basically just be a friend. He said Hector's English wasn't very good. There was a really bad language barrier. He said that he just never seemed comfortable. One of the things he told me was he never seemed like he was himself. The feeling he got was that he didn't want to be there. A few other theories I read in my research was, racism was really prominent at that time, and he was also kind of victimized by that while he was in Jacksonville. So there's definitely a few factors that played into him not really gelling in the States. But he still hit 300, so there's something to be said about that.
No, for sure. And you also get into this a little bit in the piece as well, is how much of this was him just wanting to be a Mexican League star? I mean, we don't talk about the league that much here, but in Mexico, it's incredibly well known. It's well followed. It's pretty large fan bases. It's a fun place to play. How much did that just drive his decision of, like, I'm a star here, why would I ever leave?
Exactly. So Mike swears that the reason he didn't stay in the States was a contract dispute. He was supposed to get basically 15% of the deal that his Mexican league team signed with the Cardinals. He was supposed to get 15% of that. They didn't want to give it to him. They said, but if you go play for the state, if you go play in the States, you're going to make so much more money. So that's how you'll get your money back. And he was a man of principle. Something that Mike told me about after games when they played together, they were roommates. And he said, we'd go out, we'd have some drinks. And Hector always stayed inside. He listened to music. He kept to himself. He was a really serious guy. And he said he was a guy of principle. He didn't fool around. So the belief there is that the money was a matter of principle. It was, you're going to give me my worth, and this is my worth. And he didn't feel the pressure to come play in the States because, like you just said, he was a hero in Mexico. He could go anywhere. And people recognized him, and they admired him, and they respected him and his family. They were basically treated like royalty wherever they went. So he had no incentive to leave. And one of the things that I thought was crazy, while he was still playing for his Winter League team, they named a stadium after him. So that just goes to show you. That just goes to show you what kind of reputation and character he was in his home country.
That is pretty incredible. He did the majority of his work as a professional in the Mexican League with Monterrey and with Tampico, but played really all over Saltillo, Union Laguna, Monclova. When you get to write about somebody like this, Rob, it's so interesting because we're coming at it from a standpoint of not knowing a lot about him, but he is, known as the Mexican Babe Ruth, and he's a legend there. Did you get a sense of what his legacy is still like there? I know Monterrey is the home of the Mexican Baseball Hall of Fame, and so obviously a guy who is honored in that institution and played his ball a stone's throw away from it in Monterrey and made such a big impact on the game of baseball. Do you get a feeling for what he still means to baseball down there today?
Absolutely. Like I just mentioned, that his Winter League team that named the stadium after him, every year they always mention, they always honor that date. It was pretty recent. I think it was October 5th that they changed the stadium to his name. So every October 5th, they honor that and they honor him. Obviously now that he's passed away. So he's still very much relevant there. And just in some articles I read, even some stuff from some Mexican baseball blogs, there's still a lot of stories about, and until this day, if you get into a cab in Mexico and mention his name, they will tell you stories about him.
Wow.
That's the kind of legacy he left behind there.
That is really cool stuff. Hector Espino, you can read this story at MILB.com from our good buddy Rob Terranova. Hector did pass away in 1997, but just an amazing story, which is up on the site. And if you are not familiar with it, it's a really good one. And this is such a perfect time of year, too, to dive into these stories because, I mean, obviously, there's a wide swath of us that always love the historical ones, but there's something about, the Major League postseason and leagues getting started, during normal years across the globe for winter ball, although the Mexican Pacific Winter League is getting started. But this is always such a cool time of year to kind of reflect on legacies like this. And this is a great piece, Rob. Nice job as always.
I appreciate it. Thanks, guys.
Final segment on this week's episode of The Show Before the Show. Big thanks to Michael Harrison, Rob Terranova, and Benjamin Hill. Sam has our nationwide prospect fact of the week.
Yeah, so this one I teased out at the beginning that I would have a Randy Arozarena fact. Here is that Randy Arozarena fact. One thing I've really been impressed with him during this postseason run is his ability to hit the ball hard. He's picking up all these hits. We said he's hitting 400 plus. He's reaching base at least half the time through this Tampa Bay, push towards the World Series. And that's great, but sometimes in a small sample like that, you can dink and dunk your way. He's hitting the ball hard a lot, and that's what we're going to get into here. So during the regular season, like I said, he was a late season call-up, but still got more than 10 games during the regular season. He had an exit velocity of 100 miles an hour or more. That's not rounding. It literally has to start with 100 miles an hour or more 16 times. Pretty good. During the postseason, again, a shorter run against tougher competition, he's hit the ball at 100 miles an hour or more, again, exactly 16 times. It's so I love that so much. Again, amazing. That could change by the time you guys hear this. And if it has changed, it's because he's actually had an exit velo of 100 plus more. That we're not going to take any away from that 16. If anything, it's going to go to 17 or 18. But just to show you what he's doing here, these are not cheap hits. These are loud all over the field, home runs, doubles. He's got a triple in there as well. He is a big reason why the Tampa Bay Rays are this close to the World Series and maybe even in the World Series by the time you hear this. We'll love to see what happens with him going forward. There's not much in his profile that tells me he's always going to be this dangerous of a hitter. But if the StatCast numbers back up, the numbers on his player page, then that's a strong argument for, hey, this could last a while and the Rays could have really something special in here beyond the 2020 postseason.
And remember, he's their number 19 prospect. So there's a lot of talent in that Tampa Bay system, which is ridiculous. But until next week, when we will be into the World Series, we will know that matchup and all of it. You may know it by tonight and tomorrow. By the time we talk to you next, we'll have a lot more fun baseball to talk about. So enjoy watching the remainder of the LCS. And for Sam Dykstra, I'm Tyler Mott. We'll talk to you next week.